Hey everybody, Joe Joseph here for thedailysheeple.com, and this is your news shot. Let's go to the hedge, zerohedge.com. They have a great piece, something that I know my wife and I grapple with all the time, and I'm sure many of you do too. And this piece is called The Herd Mind. It's very funny because so many people out there claim to be independent, claim to be free, if you will, claim to be in the know, yet they buy into all of these state masses type of go with the flow type of things, like, you know, whether it be public education or whether it be paying your taxes, you know, all these kind of things. It's go with the flow, path of least resistance. God forbid you be a black sheep. You know, one thing that you learn, especially if you start to dive into psychoanalysis, is the crowd mentality. Same thing as the herd mind. Gustave Le Bon wrote a great book back in the 19th century called The Crowd. It's a very short book, and you can get it very cheap on Amazon. And I highly recommend that people read it, because Le Bon's work into the crowd mind and how people's behavior changes once they become part of a crowd. You wonder why I say don't tie your identity to movements or to, you know, political parties or to economic affiliations or whatever it is. Don't tie who you are to those things. You know, enjoy being a part of it. Don't get me wrong. But when you say, you know, somebody asks, well, what are you? What affiliation are you? I'm Joe. What do you mean? Are you a Democrat, Republican? No, I'm Joe. I am not a Democrat. I am not a Republican. Hell, I'm not even an independent. I am. That's all I am, right? Because once you say, I'm independent, I'm Republican, you instantly box yourself in. You have instantly taken your world and gone and crunched it into a tiny box, right? And each time you do this, that box gets smaller and smaller. It gets tighter and tighter, you know? So this is a good piece to go over, because a lot of people don't really understand that they're part of that herd mentality. They don't even know it. And the thing is, as far as a litmus test for me, is you know you're not part of the herd because you're doggone uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable and unnatural for us to not be a part of a crowd, whether it be a herd, whether it be a tribe. Humans really are tribal beings. You know, we're individuals. We're created as individual sovereign human beings, but we tend to gravitate towards each other. And I think we're designed that way. But we've kind of ceded our sovereignty, our individual sovereignty and our individuality to often take the easy road or the shortcut. And in doing so, we're sacrificing a lot of very important things, a lot of important values, a lot of important virtues, and ceding those for the traditions and the doctrine of men. And that's absolutely wrong. It's something that we have to really work hard at trying to correct if we're going to be able to right the ship, which I don't think we're capable of. But we certainly are capable of righting our individual ships, right? We shouldn't be looking at this problem that we face, you know, the powers that shouldn't be versus us, as this overarching problem that we have to solve and make everybody sing Kumbaya. It's never going to happen. Hasn't happened since the world began, and it's not going to happen now. But we can certainly get our houses in order, which is exactly what we have to do. This article says Randolph Bourne famously wrote, "War is the health of the state." And this has long been the byword for anti-war, anti-state libertarians, and rightly so. But Bourne didn't mean exactly what most libertarians take this phrase to mean. To understand the maxim's original meaning as Bourne used it in his great unfinished essay, The State, one must understand his distinctions among three concepts that are often conflated: country, state, and government. Now, for Bourne, a country or a nation is a group of individuals bound together by cultural affinity. A state is a country or nation collectively mobilized for attack or protection. And this is what he wrote when he distinguished between the two. He said, country is a concept of peace, of tolerance, and of living and letting live. But state is essentially a concept of power, of competition. It signifies a group in its aggressive aspects. And government, according to Bourne, is the machinery by which nations, organized as a state, carry out its state functions, and a framework of the administration of laws and the carrying out of the public force. Now, what libertarians, it says, commonly referred to as the state, Bourne termed the government instead. So the way libertarians often interpret his famous aphorism is what Bourne would have expressed if he written, war is the health of the government. And this so happens to be also true, but it's not what he meant. For Bourne, the state is not a distinct ruling body subsisting extractively on the ruled, i.e., like a gang of thieves writ large, as the great Murray Rothbard incessantly conceived. Rather, he saw it as a certain orientation of a whole people, a spiritual phenomenon pervading an entire populace that animates and empowers such a ruling body. And this is what Bourne wrote about this, about government. He said, government is the idea of the state put into practical operation in the hands of definite, concrete, fallible men. It is the visible sign of the invisible grace. It is the word made flesh, and it has necessarily the limitations inherent in all practicality. Government is the only form in which we can envision the state, but it's by no means identical with it. That the state is a mystical conception is something that must never be forgotten. Its glamour and its significance linger behind the framework of government and direct its activities. But in peacetime, Bourne explained, the state is largely relegated to the background. Individuals are then more concerned with their own affairs and purposes. But during the build-up to war, and especially during the breakout, the foreign enemy looms large in the public imagination. Hence, the country is overtaken by war fever and develops what Garrett called a complex of vaunting and fear. This hybrid mania of boastful belligerence and timorous terror causes the populace to regress from a civilization to a herd. And the people seek safety in numbers, of course. And this is the thing. Look, even today, we tend to gravitate towards people of like mind. It's what we do. Again, I think inherently we are a tribal species. And no one likes to be alone or feel isolated, you know? And really, if you think about it, we're all created equally. No person is above another. So we need to embrace our sovereignty, but also understand that there is a need for fellowship. Whether you're spiritual or not, it doesn't matter. There's a need for it. And we cannot let that need for fellowship trump our individual sovereignty. And that's what's happened. That's how they get away with these wars. That's how they get away with everything. And one thing that Laban proved in his research was that people's behavior changes in a crowd. People will behave differently with a group of people than they would individually. You know, it is the herd mind. And until we, again, I can't say this enough, until we embrace that individuality, until we fight back at or fight against the state's will, because remember, the state knows nothing but force. Everything it does, every function it does by force. There's nothing that it does in a lovey-dovey kind of manner. Everything is force, force, force. We are the government. Boom, hammer. That's what they have. One tool in the toolbox. So the only way we can really change the entire situation, and this is important going into 2018, everybody out there that feels like you need to do a New Year's resolution, how about we resolve this? How about we seek to become the best sovereign individuals that we can possibly be? And I would try and I would challenge you to muster up the courage to be civilly disobedient with something that you feel like is, that you may be against. Because there's a lot of laws on the books and there are a lot of statutes out there that, quite frankly, are a mockery, that are a offense to everything and every value that this country was founded upon. And until we change that, until we break away from the herd mind, and until we say, look, this far, no farther, I am willing to fight for my right to live in peace, as the Declaration of Independence said. I want to live with life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I can't do that if I'm constantly under the thumb or I have a jackboot on my neck. How does anybody live happily and free like that? Only if you're conditioned from the very beginning. Hence, your public education system, which does nothing now but teach to these No Child Left Behind tests and bring about a system that indoctrinates you through prison culture and this Pavlovian ring the bell, go here, ring the bell, go there concept. They want automatons that are just smart enough to operate the machines, but dumb enough to ask questions or to push back. And that is what we have. So going into 2018, let's do this. Let's resolve to be the best people we can possibly be. Let's resolve to love one another. And let's resolve to respect each other. And if we can all just do that, put aside that urge to capitulate to the powers that shouldn't be, to the state, to government, and embrace our sovereignty, our individuality, and love one another, 2018 could be a monumental year. I'm Joe Joseph. This was thedailysheeple.com's News Shot. Feel free to comment below and visit our website at thedailysheeple.com. Hashtag wake the flock up. Happy New Year, everybody. Have a great day.